Hey, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Bahashem Bakak Kodash. Double honor and salutations to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the hopeful elect. Shalom to you brothers out here pushing the truth with fear and sincerity. Shabbat Kalak Har, GMS Northwest. Come back at you with another video. And as of May 7th, that Real ID came into effect, which will affect you traveling domestically in the United States. So the government enforced Real ID for you to travel. And what's a Real ID? A Real ID is pretty much more security measures, more identification purposes to really identify you with your pictured ID, you know. And what sparked me to do this video is I was on DeepSeek asking what's next after the Real ID. But before we get into it, we're gonna read this article here, or just get a few points in this article. It's from US Today. It states, "No storing your license. These flyers tried their luck on the first day of Real ID." Now, you can still fly, you know, without your Real ID. You probably, it's going to say in the article, but you got to understand something. You know, this is just the beginning of their tightness. They're putting the lockdown. You know, surveillance. You name it, biometrics, mobile IDs, like it's all coming to the forefront, you know. And the Real ID is pretty much the start of this New World Order, Novus Seclorum of the wicked, you know, that one accord. They want everybody to come on one accord, one religion, one world religion, one currency, you know, MOTBs, you know, surveillance, 45 cameras for one person, you know, you name it. But I wanted to scroll down in this article. We're going to read right past this. It says, there is an alternative compliance mechanism if you show up at the airport without a Real ID. Here, this picture right here says Real ID. The ID you presented is not Real ID compliant. And, you know, this is just a little pamphlet paper right now. But when that MOTB come out and you're not compliant, they're going to take your ass up. Because look, they're going to make it mandatory. That's what we're waiting on. You know, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua, we're waiting on the mandatory implantation of the MOTB. And, you know, a lot of people, you know, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but, you know, people are going to buck up and say, I'm not taking that, and I'm just going to continue to try to live my life the way, and you're going to be incompliant. And if you're incompliant on something that's mandatory, guess what they're going to do? They're going to take you to a holding room. They're going to take you to a FEMA camp, a concentration camp, a re-education camp, you know, a prison cell. You know, that's why the scriptures speak on being faithful, you know, for 10 days, and I'll give you a crown of life, even if you have to face death. Because we know the guillotine is part of their you know, their punishment for not taking the MOTB. So this is just the beginning. You don't want to be compliant, hey, you're going to have to come over to this line. We're going to have to take you back to this room. You know, it's a prelude. It's a sensationalism. Salakia. That's not the word I was looking for. It's gradualism. Salakia. Gradualism. You know, a precursor, you know, the prior to You know, what's going to happen for you not complying with this beast system, you know? As a matter of fact, let me see if I can find that. What's it? 3. You know, we all hoping that the Lord keep us from this hour of temptation that's coming. This is Revelation 3:10. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I will also keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. You know, so this hour of temptation is coming. And like I just said, these are preludes to what's coming. It says once we identify somebody that doesn't have the compliant ID, we're going to give them one of these notices. It says TSS Federal Agent Director of Georgia said, holding up a small sheet of red paper. It said, it reads, your ID presented is not Real ID compliant and includes a QR code that's linked to a list of acceptable identifications. It says, then they may be referred to some special lanes, or they may undergo additional screening on the lane that they are at. So, like I said, you're going to have to go to another lane. You're going to have to go to more screening, you know. It said it will be a minor inconvenience. And so I would recommend that passengers plan for some extra time, but they'll still be able to fly. They'll still be able to make their plane. And like I said, that's just for now. But it's going to be a point where you ain't going to be able to get on no flight without no Real ID. You know, you're not going to be able to do anything without that Real ID. It says for shuttle, it was relatively painless process to get past TSA without Real ID. It says it was like an extra 5 minutes. He said they just swabbed some of my stuff in my bag and had brought extra documents just in case. So, you know, this double swabbing, like marking you. Like, hey, this person don't got Real ID. When they see it, probably their stuff go through the machine. This person don't got Real ID. You know, we got to put more surveillance. We got to watch this person because this person is not compliant. You know, they just marking you, which this devil actually want to do. He wants to actually mark you. You know, he want to put a mark in your hand and in your forehead, or wherever he might see fit. It says, I would just say, kind of make sure you bring like stuff like to verify. From what I understand, it's different everywhere. It's just whatever the TSA people at the time feel like they're doing, or whatever the rules are on that particular station. You know, they testing the waters. It says, for now, shuttle, best advice to travelers who are cutting it close, be prepared. You don't know how it's going to go. Find out. So, yeah, this is coming to the forefront, you know. And you got to be wise. You got to be circumspect to never trust our enemy, because he has these devices out here. Here, this is 2 Corinthians 2:11. Lest Satan should get advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. You know, we're not ignorant of his. In the NLT it says, so that Satan will not outsmart us, for we are familiar with his evil schemes. And what is his evil schemes? It's this enterprise. It's this new world order. You know, we're watching out. We see what's going on. This is Job 5 and verse 12. He disappointeth the device of the crafty. The devices. You know, we're not ignorant of Satan's devices. He disappointed the devices of the crafty, so their enterprise cannot perform so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. And what's their enterprise? It's the New World Order. Merging man with machine, transhumanism. Real I.Ds. As a matter of fact, before we go on, let's get what DeepSeek had to say about what's next after the Real I.D. It says, after Real I.D., the next evolution in U.S. identification and security is likely to involve digital identity solutions, mobile driver license, and biometric verification. So all digital, on a digital front. You're all on a digital front. And we know that the time is sped up for the elect's sake. So this thing is gonna come fast. This thing ain't gonna come, it's gonna take 20, 30 plus another 10 years, maybe 5 years to get it all right. No, this thing will be here in the next couple of years. Lord will. By next year it'll be here. On the forefront, like pushing it real hard. It says mobile driver license, Apple Wallet and Google integration, digital driver's license stored in smartphones. It says TSA acceptance is testing it out. Security beliefs encrypted contactless verification reduces fraud and physical card reliance. So taking all of that away. You don't have to, be physical. You don't have to pull out a physical card. It can all be on your mobile. Like these cell phones. Basically, this chip is going to be like this cell phone stuck inside your hand, but you can't throw it away. With our cell phones, we can throw those away. You can throw it in the lake, but you ain't chopping off your hand and throwing it in the lake. Unless you have a surgeon that's gonna sew that shit back. Stop it from bleeding out and sew your shit together. It's like it. Bear with me. Ooh, shit. It's like it. It says biometric and facial recognition. TSA's credential authentication technology scans IDs and matches them to facial recognition at airports. Example given, LAX, DAC. It says DHS simplified arrival using facial recognition for international travel. So these cameras, when you scan your Real ID, your information goes into some type of cloud, especially if you're traveling international, where when you're heading to this airport, so they already have the computer looking for your face to see where you at, to see what you're doing, to make sure you made it on time. This is the surveillance. Esau Edom, his New World Order, where he's going to be, he has a godlike complex. He thinks he's God. He's sitting in the seat. 441, call hello, Yahweh Bashim Yahshua Bashim Kakadash. He's sitting in the seat and thinking he's God, thinking he can be that big brother, like that TV show Big Brother, watching from afar. Esau Edom want to sit back and say, look, I got slaves. I got everybody where I want them to go. They can't escape my hand. I know everything they're doing. 441 again, call hello, Yahweh Bashim Yahshua Bashim Kakadash. This devil, man. That's why we're not ignorant of his devices. Verse 13, Job 5:13, he taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the forward is carried headlong. Damn, you just gonna cut in front of people, huh? Bitch ass. So like it says 14, it says, I'm reading an NLT. I'm gonna start at 12. Job 5:12, it says, he frustrates the plan of the schemers so the work of their hands will not succeed. He traps the wise in their own cleverness, so their cunning schemes are thwarted. Salakia. They find it is dark in the daytime, and they grope at noon as it was night. So this Esau Edom, he's planning this, man. He's already got it in the motion. He's already got this 555 call, Lord Yahweh Shem Yahshua Bashim Kakadash. Esau Edom already got this in the motion, but we pray for that spiritual mark. That mark in Ezekiel 9:4, it says, "And the Lord Yahweh said unto him, Go through the midst of the city throughout Jerusalem." It was Jerusalem? Jerusalem's the people, the Israelites, "and set a mark upon the foreheads of the man that sigh and cry for the abominations done in the midst thereof." Because this is an abomination. Biometric facial recognition, this is abomination. It says Real ID 2.0, potential future upgrades. Blockchain-based IDs, secure, tamper-proof, and digital identities. Enhanced biometric fingerprints, iris scans, your eyes are getting scanned, embedded in IDs. Shit. Federal digital ID standards, passport cards and global entries. Alternative, that's just alternatives. 333, call hello Yahweh Shem Yahshua Bashim Kakadash. You got to stand the wiles of the devil. Because this devil is going to make his move. We're signing crown for the abominations done in the midst thereof. You got to be sober. You got to be vigilant. You got to have a clear mind. You got to have a clear head. You got to be watching out for this, man. This is 1 Peter 5, and I'm going to start at 7. It says, "Casting all your care upon him, for he cared for you." That's who? Yahweh Shem Yahushua. We're putting our trust in the Lord, because the Lord is going to get us out of this and not, keep us from the wiles of the hour of temptation, like in Revelation 3rd chapter. The hour of temptation. It says, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour." So this devil, the deceiver, Esau Edom, whose spiritual demon Satan is using the so-called white race to do his bidding. The spiritual demon Satan, and the devil, which is Esau Edom, he's gonna lie. He's gonna trick his way into trying to make you take this MOTB. Yeah, we gotta comply to the Real ID, or not fly, or shit, just don't fly. But you never know. You might go see brothers, and whatnot. So you gotta be compliant. But if they asking you to put something in you, we know not to do that, right? We know not to give in to the wiles of this devil, because his devices. We know what this is leading to. We know what it's going to. It says, "Whom resist is steadfast in faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world." So with that said, I'm almost to the plantation, so call Lord Yahweh Shem Yahshua Bashim Kakadash. Hope it's edified. Hope you got some out of this. Shalom. I hope to see you on the next.